Hi everyone, welcome to another Aircon talk. This is the junior sound designer panel. I'm Lewis from Airwiggles and Aircon, and I'm joined today by three amazing junior sound designer guests of mine. I'll start with, I don't know if I'm in the same order as you, but on my right is Jack O'Callaghan from Frontier Developments. Down in the corner is Lewis Bull, who is at Soundcuts with me, and below me is Jamie Lee, who is at A Shell in the Pit. Tell you what, Jack, can you give us a really quick intro about yourself before the presentations? Just a quick hello.
Yeah, of course. Hello, guys. My name's Jack. I'm a graduate audio designer at Frontier Developments. I've only been there for about 4 months now, but yeah.
Nice, cool. Lewis?
Hi there, I'm Lewis. I work for Soundcuts. I'm a junior sound designer. I just love anything that makes noise.
Nice, don't we all? And Jamie?
Hello, I'm Jamie. I work at A Shell in the Pit as a sound designer, and I've been at A Shell in the Pit since last August.
Fantastic. Amazing. So yes, I'm super excited to speak to you all today. A lot of people on Airwiggles are dying to know like how to get into audio, how to get that, impossible first job as a junior sound designer, because it's quite difficult. And so who better to ask than people who have literally just done it within the last year? Is that right? All of you have got your kind of first breakout ready in the last year. Is that right? I think that's right. So yeah, I can't wait to ask you some questions. What we're going to do, everyone, we have some like introductions from everyone, and people can tell us how they got into the industry, like their own little paths. And then after that, we'll have some questions that I prepared. And then we have some community questions that we received a couple of weeks ago. And we'll also mix in some questions from the audience. So any questions you like, let us know. But we're more likely to answer them if you put them at the end when we're doing the questions. Tell you what then, Lewis Bull, I'll start with you, my fellow Soundcuts employee. Obviously, I'm a good friend of yours, so I know your journey. But could you please let the people know your journey into game audio? And I believe you have a presentation for us, right, to go through quickly.
I sure do. I'll get it up and running now.
Fantastic.
Ta-da!
Beautiful. Look at that.
So,
all right, Lewis, over to you. Take it away. Good luck.
Thank you so much. So, as Lewis kindly said, I am a junior sound designer and I work with Soundcuts. And within the first year, I'd say I've got my first real break with it. But how did this all start? So, to start off with a bit of background about myself, I first started out playing Guitar Hero, really, and that got me into playing guitar, weirdly enough. And since that day, I've just been kind of music obsessed. I went through my GCSEs doing music, went through college doing BTECs in music, and just kind of getting to grips with the basics of DAWs and what have you, nothing too extreme. And then I went to university at the Academy of Contemporary Music, which is in Guildford. And that's kind of the point where my life kind of turned into this musical journey. I worked outside the industry for about 5 years. I was working at Tesco, and it was miserable, as you can expect, because it is a supermarket and it is retail. But after I went through all of that, I decided I wanted to change my life and do something better. So I took another job, which was at a hi-fi and TV retail store, similar kind of vibe, but a little bit closer to what I wanted to do. And throughout all of that, I kind of got to grips with hardware more than anything. Then COVID hit and I was bound to my home doing customer service, which made me super miserable. So during all this lockdown weirdness, I devised a plan of what I wanted to do and how to get into the industry itself. This is a kind of recreated drawing. One is much scruffier and kind of all over the show. But in short, I couldn't decide where I wanted to go, whether it was games, TV, film, music production. And doing this, I decided to use a method known as the SWOT method. That's SWOT, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. All the things that were kind of going to be for me. And as you can see, there was a lot of points there to take in, but specifically on the game side of things, the things that I thought I was good at were my strengths. Things that I thought my weaknesses were highlighted there as well. And I just assessed all this to find out what was good for me and what I wanted to do. Some of the eagle-eyed viewers of you may have noticed that one of them says it's very competitive, and that's just kind of the industry as it is. But more and more we get into this talk, the more I'll explain how that isn't. It's something to be aware of, but it shouldn't hinder you and not want you to do things. So this is kind of my roadmap as to what I wanted, as kind of how I do everything there. And after learning this, I wanted to reach out to some other people, some of my friends, some of my creative team from university, because I thought, okay, I wanted to have a career change. What better way to go than to speak to people that I'm aware of, that have been in the industry a little bit longer than I have, that may be able to give some advice. So I sent out emails, and this was one of them. The person in question, the identity has been hidden, unfortunately, but the advice that's in there is some really, really good stuff. So I use my network to my advantage, basically. And in this email, you can see a couple of key points in here with advice on how to get here. First things first, my email address was terrible. The email address that I had at the time was it's me, Luigi69. So first things first, if you're going to take any bit of advice, make sure you have a professional sounding email, because this was the first thing that popped up on. And he kind of joked about it and said, it's really, really, it's not very professional, but it is quite serious. You need to do that. As well as that, he was talking about how his journey of working in retail, as I was at the time, and just slowly building at work and being a little bit more tenacious and just working through this to get just some bits and pieces together. One line in particular that stood out to me was everyone's journey down this route is going to be different. So whatever applied to me won't necessarily apply to you. And I think that's super important to recognize when listening to everyone's talks today. Everyone's journey is going to be different. But ultimately, as long as you're doing the same things in terms of the key points that we'll look at the end, you should be in the best position to get a job, in my opinion. As well as that, the final point I said was, finally, you need to be as determined as hell to make a living out of this. I think if you haven't got that drive, if you haven't got that passion to do something, you really are going to struggle in this industry. I know every one of my fellow junior designers here are all going to be super, super driven to get what they want to. That's why they're here today. And the fact that you're here watching this talk right now is a big sign that you are also determined to do it. So I think if you keep on with what you're doing right now, then and just keep working, keep creating, it's going to work out, which we'll come on to the next points in just a second. There was another message here with another one of my colleagues, again, just asking, how do I get here? And these are kind of the first steps. And yeah, it was all really, really good advice just to reach out from people who are in this industry. And that can also be from people within Airwiggles. So if you contact other people within Airwiggles and say, hey, you're a junior, do you mind me asking how did you get into this position? What was your journey? And build up relationships like that. I think it's super, super important as somebody who's trying to break into the industry. Now, here is a list of every single person who I emailed prior to this. So this might be a little bit humbling. It's definitely humbling for me, as when I was trying to start out with a career, I emailed all these people. And this wasn't necessarily a great idea for a couple of reasons. It was super kind of spammy, a lot of things on there that just weren't even strictly an audio specialist. So some people like Tiger Aspect, for example, who do deal with a little bit with audio, but they are much, much bigger corporation than that. But out of all of these, I ended up getting 10 interviews back. Sorry, 10 messages back and 1 interview. And that interview didn't go very well, unfortunately. So after all of that, what did the email look like? And this was the email I sent out, and it was super, super kind of vague and ambiguous. So I said, my name is Lewis. I've worked as an audio music editor. I've just finished up a contract with it was kind of freelance work at the time. So I was just trying to pick up any jobs and just do what I could at the time. And it just seemed to be it looked very, very generic. So while this can be successful for some, it wasn't very successful for myself, despite putting a lot of hours in to get this list of emails and all of these clients that were potentially going to be employers, effectively. So that was kind of my journey with how I got here. And I got to the point where I just started contacting, speaking to my friends and trying to improve upon on show reels and asking for feedback from people. One of the people here, which is Lewis Thompson, who is the founder of Airwiggles and sorting out this incredible convention. And I was messaging people back and forth saying, okay, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? How do you think I could improve this sound? What should I do to make my show reel a little bit more interesting? So I kept asking about all these different things. And over the course of 9 months, I ended up developing a show reel, which was, in my opinion, okay. And after all of this back and forth and back and forth, eventually there was an opportunity that arose within one of the companies, which was for sound cuts. So I was speaking to Lewis at the time. I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning. But as I was speaking back and forth, it was a case of, he said, there's a job opening coming up soon. I think that you're going to be a good fit. And I believe the reason for that was because I was so tenacious. I was back and forth, always asking for advice. I was just trying to improve myself for the better, and it was showing. So we went through all of this back and forth, and eventually I got an opportunity to get a job at Soundcuts. I presented my show reel, did everything I could, and thank the Lord, they actually took me on, and I managed to get my first break that way, which was super. The whole thing comes down to, I think, 4 points. I'm hoping that's okay. My signal's a little funny, but that's okay. All comes down to 4 points with how I got here, whittled down into that big ramble of a speech. Number 1, speak to people, make friends, go to meetups, and show genuine passion and interest in what you do. I think this is probably the most important thing. This all stems back from my university days. I would be sitting there playing Super Smash Bros. With all my friends at the time, and I could rely on them as a network later on in life. So no matter who you talk to, it could be the smallest interaction, but if you keep speaking to new people, keep up those relationships, it could be super beneficial to you in the long run. Secondly, work hard. Create content and make it as easy accessible as possible to reach. People will see your work and the consistency, and it will eventually just show through in your person and your kind of drive to do something. In this case, like I say, with Lewis, who was helping me throughout my journey to get better and better, it eventually became a road towards a job, because you could see that was working consistently. I hope I'm not sounding too big-headed when I say that, but from my perspective, that's kind of how it seemed. I was working pretty much every day, every night. As soon as I finished off the phone call with a customer who couldn't turn on the TV, I was immediately onto my laptop trying to figure out sound redesigns, recreating sounds, and working as hard as I could. Thirdly, when the chance arrives for work, be ready for it, which kind of works into the second part here. So having content ready to go, having a show reel ready to go, having assets ready to go to show off that you are dependable, you have got that work ethic, and you can create good content, will take the conversation from someone saying, oh, I'm kind of thinking about hiring someone from here, to, oh, I love your work, I'd like to hire you. Which also comes back to the speaking people and making friends and becoming part of the network of developers and audio people alike. So being ready for the opportunity, super, super important, which comes from the hard work. And lastly, know your limits. I said I was working hard. As soon as I was off the phone call, I was straight onto my laptop and just working. I was doing that consistently most nights, but I was also up at 2 a.m. most nights doing that, which wasn't great for my health, because I would lose sleep. I would be having to lose my weekends because I was too busy sleeping in, because I was too busy catching up, and it was a vicious cycle. So listen to your body. I think you produce the best work when you're in the best mindset rather than running on empty and fumes. So that's super important throughout all of this. Your health should come first before any of that. And lastly, the biggest advice, which you may have seen in the email previously, I'm not going to say the word just for family-friendly sakes, but I think in short, that is a top tip. Just be a very nice person, be approachable, do anything you can within reason to help other people. Within reason being the key word there. But I think as long as you're approachable, you're friendly, people will want to make friends with you, which comes back into that previous point of having that network of people and being more approachable and likable. So that's kind of my journey and how I got there. I hope it wasn't too much of a ramble, but yeah.
Thank you so much, Lewis. That was a really great mini kind of 10-minute presentation. Really well done. And I love the final point of don't be a duck. Great advice.
Yes, love it.
I'd just like to join on with this, actually, because I know you don't want to say this because it's bigging yourself up too much. But can I just say that, like, Lewis, I mean, I've known Lewis for ages now because we went to university together. Not on the same course, to be fair, but we kind of did similar courses at the same time, we knew each other through then. And like, to be fair, like when I was aware of there was a job listing at my company and I recommended Lewis, I'd also worked with Lewis a few times, like on a few projects when I was freelancing myself. He helped me out a bit. And again, Lewis is really, really good. Like all the time you spend working and practicing stuff, like it really showed. He became a really amazing composer, arranger, sound designer, everything. So obviously he's kind of like not saying that out loud because you can't say that, but I just want to really say that Lewis improved so much doing all the practicing between all the networking and meeting people and all that stuff as well. He really did smash it. So yeah, I'm sure you've got a long career in game audio ahead of you.
That's very sweet. Thank you so much.
But yes, thank you so much. And I love some of those points you were saying. You know, I totally agree. It might be good to actually, we can maybe get the slides for those and share them out afterwards if you're okay with it, because there's a lot of emails. Can I ask, all those like 50 companies that you've emailed, was that with itsamiluigi69@gmail.com, or did you have a new email address?
I learned my lesson from that one. Yeah, I
Okay,
sent that email in 2018, got some great information, and 2020 came around, and
there you go, personal growth. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I'll tell you what, Lewis, we'll come back to you later when we start doing the questions, but if it's okay with you, Jack, are you good to go next?
Yeah, of course. That's a hell of one to follow, though.
I know,
that was the holy grail of presentations right there. Hello, I'm Jack. I'm a graduate audio designer at Frontier Developments. So I'm just going to talk very briefly kind of about my journey. It's nowhere near as strategized as Lewis's was, but I guess that's the different route I went on. So before I started in sound design, I studied music production in college. I was kind of focusing a little bit more in electronic dance and also kind of the post-production. Towards the end of my course, I started looking into sound design. So we didn't actually have any sound design sections in my course, like at all. So a lot of my knowledge came from kind of just stuff on websites. I didn't really know pretty much anything about game audio or sound design in general. I chose personally not to go to university, and instead I worked part-time, and in my free time I practiced sound design. I mainly just put this here because I know quite a few people can not know if it's right to go to university for them and if it's needed. And I just want to kind of say that it's not needed. It's not the be end and end all. But if that's something you want to do, then of course, go for it. My first steps in sound design. So I created my first redesign as my final project for my college course. It was horrendous. I don't know why I decided to do that. And I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning. Similar to Lewis, I did the spam email. I said, hey, I need a job. Look at me. And of course, that was not the right way to do it. I had no idea if these studios were even hiring for audio. And most of them came back and said, we don't do audio. And a lot of them just didn't respond. And of course, why would you? And I kind of had to really think about what I was doing and learn from the mistakes. But yeah, I think kind of the turning point for me was going to develop in Brighton. It's actually where I met Lewis and a lot of other really amazing game audio folk as well. A lot of my current team as well at Frontier, I met quite a few of them. So kind of I forced myself to go. It was extremely nerve-wracking getting the train down there and turning up to this conference where I knew barely anything about game audio and turning up to people and going, hi, I do this. Have you got any info for me? But I honestly believe I wouldn't be in the position I am now if I hadn't have gone. So just kind of push yourself. If you feel like you feel too nervous to do something or something like that, I promise you, if you're nervous, it's probably because the result's going to be the best thing at the end of it. And then I focused on building a redesign portfolio and showcase. This was kind of off the back of some advice I got in Develop, because before that, I didn't really even understand what a showcase was, how to kind of show off my work. I was still kind of in the mindset of just producing some tracks and then throwing it up on SoundCloud and sending my SoundCloud link. So kind of transitioning from that was a massive learning curve for me as well. I also tried to work on creating an interesting website. I think this is something that a lot of people, miss. Is it's super important to have an engaging website. Like a piece of advice Lewis told me was have your show reel pop up the instant they open up that link, because you don't want a employer searching for your website. Otherwise, they'll just go to the next person that's got it straight there. So make sure it's fast and engaging. I networked a lot going to all my local and online meetups. This was, I think, something that I prided myself on, that I was fairly good at, and also something that I feel like got me in the place I am as well as going to Develop, was just kind of networking, meeting people. I got a lot of advice from people that I'd met in meetups, and people would give me notes and notes on my show reel, and it was literally just from saying hello at a meetup. So network as much as you possibly can. I know Lewis has already kind of touched on that. I was given so much guidance from so many amazing people in game audio. Honestly, like, people in game audio are awesome. They're always willing to help, even if they seem like a scary senior and you don't want to talk to them. Trust me, just as long as you're nice and you're not spammy and you're generally just asking for advice and not a position, you're fine. I'm sure they'll give you some advice. And I was lucky enough to get constant mentoring from Lewis Thompson, who's in here now. He was very kind and gave me a mentoring session once a month. And that really, really helped me kind of turn the corner from just doing sound design as a hobby and kind of really, really focusing on it and kind of honing my website and my show reel so I could start getting some positions. So the process of me getting my job. So I'm sure most of you know, Frontier did a open to all test to try and get a graduate audio team. I applied and I got that test. I'm not saying that I applied and they gave the test to everyone. I wasn't special getting the test. I completed the test and it consisted of a Jurassic World clip and a select set of samples. And we could also only use stock Reaper plugins. Now, this was a massive challenge. I was fairly new to Reaper. I'd only been using it for about 3 months beforehand. So getting into stock Reaper plugins was absolutely terrifying. But it was an interesting challenge, especially select set of samples. And I would really encourage everyone to give this a go. Even if you're not going to be applying for tests, it kind of pushes you in a different way. And it can be really creatively interesting. Having a select set of samples, almost problem solving like. After passing the test stage, which obviously I was super happy about, I got to an interview. The interview kind of consisted mainly of just personal questions about how I got into sound design, what games I enjoyed, what I enjoyed about sound design. And someone else that I met during Develop was Adele, who actually did a Q&A, I think yesterday it was, who runs Soundcuts. And she gave me an amazing piece of advice, which is a lot of people go into interviews not having a favorite game that do audio really, really well, or a game that they don't think does audio very well. And that's something really important because the employer wants to know what you're looking out for, because that answer could mean a million different things for the kind of sound designer you are. And a lot of people aren't prepared for that. So little questions like that, just be prepared for. And as I've kind of touched on already, I focused a lot of time for prep for this interview. So I played a lot of Frontier games. I looked into any history of the audio department, kind of any fun facts that I could use in the interview. And 90% of the stuff that I prepped for obviously didn't come up. Why would it? It's just the way it is. But there are definitely some points, especially some of the fun facts and stuff that I discovered that came up in the interview, and I think probably gave me a helping hand in the process. So working game audio now. I've been at Frontier for 5 months now. I've worked on Planet Zoo, Jurassic World, and Jurassic World Evolution 2. My role so far has consisted of creating assets and implementing them into game, but we do get to look at quite a wide range of tasks. And I've been extremely fortunate to work with such an amazing team at Frontier. I'm extremely lucky to have such a close group of graduates with me that we can all learn and work together. And you can have that not just working in a team, you can have that in Airwiggles, you can have that with friends. Build this network around you, and don't be afraid to build it of juniors and not just people that are super experienced, because these are the people that are going to be giving you a helping hand, because they're going to be on your level. They're going to know what you're going through. So just kind of network, build that support group, and it will come. Yeah, that's it.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Jack. Yeah, again, fantastic little presentation. Really appreciate it. And again, I'm going to do the exact same thing. Jack also got really, really good at sound design during that whole time, which he obviously can't say because who would say that? But yes, like you really put the work in. And I saw when I met you at Develop, like in about 6 months after you got the Frontier job, you improved so much. And Jack touched on actually that you said you were quite comfortable with like the networking side and stuff. And I think that totally rings true. Jack, for about 6 months or so, I still see you quite a lot now, to be fair. But when I met you at Develop, I saw you at all the Guildford meetups, all the London meetups. I feel like I saw you everywhere. I couldn't look at my phone and not see you somewhere. But that was a really good thing because you were really good. I really loved talking to you, really friendly. And I think everyone that's met you, I hope, was probably thinking the same kind of thing. And so I think that really helped as well, like meeting people, getting opportunities. And I'm sure that when you went into your interview, just being yourself like you, I imagine you did do. I imagine that really helped as well. So congratulations. And thank you so much for chatting with us about that. Just really quickly, before I move on to you, Jamie, someone mentioned in the chat whether having a website is essential. And I'd just like to say, whoever asked that, ask it again at the end, because I would love to talk about that. But for now, we'll keep going through the introductions. Anyway, Jamie, you're next, if that's okay.
All right.
I know you don't have a presentation, but
I don't. I'm just gonna go casual. I honestly can just say me 3, and then kind of be done with my intro, because I see a lot of familiarities with Jack's story and Luis's story. But yeah, I'll just like share my story, how I got here, and hopefully it can help some people who are tuning in right now. So I'm Jamie. I am sorry, I'm a sound designer. But before this, I actually was a jazz musician. I have been, like let's use the kind of sort of present tense. So I actually went to music school, jazz school. That was kind of like strictly teaching bebop jazz only, and my major instrument was drums. And I have been at it for about 10 years. I got to tour and like play festivals and recording and like whatnot, all the cool like musician stuff. And so after graduating, this was in 2019, I worked on my first album, finally released my album. I had my release party, and then like it was great. And then literally a week after that, the pandemic happened. So everything that was planned around my album had to be just scrapped. Zero. There was no gigs, there's no tours, there's no like literally nothing. And at the time my main income source was teaching too. So that was a really hard transition. Luckily I was working at a studio that was really fast to adopt into, like online lessons. But like, yeah, the whole year, maybe a year and a half, was like online lessons in my bedroom with like electric drum kits. Like, can you hear me? Can you hear, just those kind of stuff. It was kind of rough. So that's the time when I just realized that maybe this is not so stable. I mean, like obviously, but that's when like it really hit me. I was like, maybe I should look for some other, maybe like safety net for myself, like because there's no guarantee that this wouldn't happen ever again in the future. So I started picking up a DAW. My first DAW was Logic Pro, and I just started like yes, and I just started fiddling around it, making music mostly. But then, so as I was picking that up, the world was opening back up. So I was like slowly going back to my musician life, more gigs, more recordings, more like a little bit of tours, but not too much. But full time teaching schedule came back. So I was really busy, and it kind of like the thought of, oh, maybe I need to like make little pivot. It kind of like went away because I was so busy. And then in 2022, in February, one of my really, really good friends, he introduced me to Game Jam. So before he mentioned it to me, I didn't even know it was a thing. I was like, but I looked into it and it sounded really awesome. As a jazz musician, you always jam with people. You're kind of like, that's your thing. And then it's like, okay, so now we're going to jam together, but we're going to make a game together. Okay, so that sounds awesome. So we did it. And my friend and I, who was also a musician, both went into it together thinking, we're going to make bangers and everyone's going to twerk. It's going to be awesome. But then I was just so wrong. I went into it and my friend actually was way faster at sketching ideas than me. So I kind of like stumbled upon a sound designer role. But when we went into it, we were like, it's easy. Sound effects are so easy. I'll just like download something and then like slap it on or whatever, But I was massively wrong, obviously. And it was really fun. Luckily for me, it was just like really simple stuff like door opening and closing, nothing so fancy, just like little footsteps. Now that I listen to it, the footsteps sound more like heartbeats, but those kind of stuff. And then, oh yeah, so after the game jam ended, I was like really pumped because it was like a different vessel for me to express my creativity. And at that time I was honestly really, really burnt out with my music career. So I was like, okay, like this made me happy. So why don't I like look into it more? Is being a sound designer a thing? And turns out it was a thing. And it can be a very stable, it can be a job that gives me like stable income. So I was like, okay, I'm sold. It ticks off all of my boxes, like stable income, stable work hours, hopefully work-life balances, and it fulfills me creatively. So I started looking into it more, but then I was really busy with, musician life again. So I couldn't really really zone into it. But eventually I was like, I really want to get into this. Like, I think this is really fun, and I think I just want to make it into a career. So I saved up a lot of money that bought me 2 months of no work. This was like summer of 2022. So I was like, okay, like during those 2 months, I'm gonna like learn implementation middlewares, and I'm gonna finally build some reels, like do a bunch of redesigns, like really, really intensely focused 2 months of like boot camp for myself, so that, I can have something to show people when I talk to people. So another thing I did during that time was like I went hard on networking. I was just knocking the doors on everyone's door, like especially on Twitter. And one thing I did, I think that kind of set me a little bit different than other people who were also trying to get into the industry, was that I was not afraid to say that I'm a noob. I have no idea what I'm doing. Please help me. I need help. And luckily, obviously, game audio people are the best people, and like they were just so willing to help me, volunteer so much of their time. I like messaged people saying like, do you have an hourly rate? Like, can you like, do you have any availability for me to hop on a call? And they were like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't need your money. I don't want your money. I'm free this day. So just like, let's hop on a call. I was like, are you sure about this? So yeah, I had like a lot of people helping me. Paul Buchler, who is a senior sound designer at EA, he was a huge help. He like literally made videos of like showing like how to render on Reaper and stuff too. And then John Kellier is also my mentor, who's been like tremendous help for me. So yeah, anyway, so during that 2 months period of time, I was working on stuff, and then I was asking some questions on Twitter, and the studio owner of A Shell in the Pit, Gord was answering my questions. And then at the end of the conversation, he was like, hey, actually, do you have any reel that I can see? Like, we can always like have a, they always have like a Rolodex of sound designers, obviously. So like, I see you're from Vancouver, and we're from Vancouver too. So it would be good to know, another sound designer, local sound designer. It's like, I'll be honest with you, I don't have anything to show you right now, but I'm working on it. So just give me a month, and I will get back to you with my reel and everything. I was like, okay, yeah, sure, just let me know. And then like 3 minutes later, Gord was like, hey, actually, do you want to do a paid test kit? I was like, what? Like a paid test kit? Okay, like I'm on no income for 2 months. And I was like, and it's a paid test kit. Like, it's a test kit. I didn't even apply for the job. So I was like, okay, I think it would be stupid for me not to take this opportunity. So I was like, okay. And then I was also really crazy that I decided to pick up Reaper for the first time during that test period. So I was like going nuts and doing like all the tests, and then like learning a new DAW. And luckily, though, they really liked my test kit, and they offered me a part-time contractor position. And then fast forward to today, I got promoted as a permanent employee on salary. Yay! And I fulfilled all the goals that I have set for me last year. And I'm, keep marching on, and keep making new goals now. Being on this panel is one of the goals too. So yeah, that's my story.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's actually really cool to hear a story which I guess is slightly less typical from coming from like a jazz drumming background. That's really interesting. But I think, I mean, not to speak on all of your behalf, but it seems like everyone really went hard on the networking side of things, didn't they? I think everyone can kind of, at some point in their journeys, did a whole bunch of networking, and it seemed to pay off after a while. And also, obviously, I said it for the other two, it's exactly the same for Jamie. Jamie is also an incredible sound designer. And so everything they were doing, they were really improving. I don't know you as well, to be fair, Jamie, so I don't know like how quickly you improved, but I've seen the stuff you've uploaded to the Airwiggles and the internet and stuff like that, and it is amazing. So who wouldn't want to hire you? I thought it was fantastic. thank you so much, everyone. I really loved all of your little introductions there. Yeah, fantastic. I'm going to get into some questions, and if that's okay with you all. And so these are kind of like addressed to everyone, but I'm aware some of you may have answered some already in your little introductions. So the first kind of question I had was, do you think you had any kind of like difference maker about yourself that gave you your big break? What do you think put you above other candidates, if anything? And tell you what, Lewis, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure thing. So anything that was a difference maker, I think attitude is probably the biggest one. I've spoken to a lot of people who have been interested, well, not super interested in the work, but they've been interested enough to think it was a career, but they didn't follow through with it. So for me, attitude is kind of a huge thing. For me, I had a kind of a personal grudge against customer service, and I used that to my advantage into wanting to get out of it. And I think that is one of the key factors to standing out of the competition, is just to show you're adaptable, be humble enough to say, okay, my work isn't actually as good as I think it is. I learned to take criticism and adapt from it. I think Jack said, I think it was in Jack's little intro there, that he was just willing to learn and change his work and get better and better and better over time by accepting that it wasn't always perfect. And I think that's super, super important in my opinion.
Absolutely. And actually, just to touch on something you said, and Jamie mentioned it as well earlier, which is, in my opinion, I mean, I'm not a junior sound designer, but I was maybe 5 years ago. I do think if you're in an interview situation, or if you're speaking to someone, and if someone asks you something which you don't, if someone asks you for like a show reel and you don't have it, if someone asks you, can you do this, and you don't know how to do it, if you don't know what someone's talking about, I think it's better to be honest and be like, look, I don't actually know, like, I'm not sure. But I'll look at it straight away. I can't wait to get, I'm excited to go and learn that kind of thing. I think don't like fake it. Don't like pretend to be someone you're not. I think as long as you're friendly and honest, I think that's probably the best way to go. So if anyone's in an interview and they get asked something they've got no idea how to answer, or it just doesn't apply to them at all, just be honest and be like, I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't have that experience. I can't answer that question. I think that's absolutely fine. In my opinion, anyway. Sorry, this is not about me though. Anyway, Jamie, do you have anything which you think kind of like puts you above other candidates?
Well, I don't think that was the case, like in terms of technical aspect of sound design, but I would say my networking skills and just like showing how self-sufficient I am by sharing my like TMIs on Twitter, basically. I just like post one thing. I have no idea what a wise is, and then like the next week I post something about like, hey, I finished the chapter 1 and now I know how to create like events or whatever stuff. So I think, yeah, just like not being afraid to like show my progress, but in order to show your progress, you have to be able to honest and like be vulnerable in the first place. And I think I'm pretty comfortable at it. Yeah.
Great, fantastic. And what about you, Jack? Anything you think you're particularly good at? Anything that stood out of the crowd?
Yeah, like I think I've touched on it earlier, and similar to Jamie, it's just kind of networking. And I want to preface this before, because I know I've kind of gone on, oh yeah, I'm great at networking, but like I was deathly afraid of all the networking I did at the start, like horrendously. Like I was like, I'm not doing it. But like just kind of getting over that and just going, right, no, this goal is way too important to throw it away because I'm a little bit nervous. I'm just gonna kind of push on for that. And just like you said, just kind of being everywhere to that the point where it's almost annoying. It's like, oh, you again. I
was almost annoyed, but I wasn't. It's okay.
It's just kind of being everywhere. So then when they think of someone to hire, it's you, because you're the only person like right in front of their face. But yeah.
Absolutely right. Yeah, totally. And you are great at networking. And you kind of mentioned as well, but I think you're also, I mean, I've never done an interview with you, but I think you are good at interviews as well. I think, yeah, I have a way with words, you have a way with people. And I think that probably did really help. I was going to say something. What was it? As a point that I keep thinking to mention. I've lost it. It'll come back to me. Anyway, okay. Next question then. Lewis, you answered this one in your presentation, which was, do you have many rejections? Did you have many rejections in your time applying for game audio job roles? Lewis, you had about 50 by the sounds of it.
Minimum, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll move on from you to save you reliving that moment anymore. But what about you, Jack? Did you have many rejections?
Yeah, Frontier was the only person that either replied to me or gave me an interview. Everywhere else I applied to, I had absolutely nothing. I also did the similar thing, like I mentioned earlier, as Lewis, is just kind of spam emailing everyone. Then I did it again, just asking for advice, no rejections, and application after application. I can't even count how many times I did it. And don't get me wrong, like it can be a bit disheartening, and I think it's okay to feel like that as well. I don't think you have to be this headstrong person where it's like, oh no, I don't care, carry on to the next one. It's okay to be a bit disappointed by rejection because it's normal. It shows you care. But just trying to keep on pushing it through it.
Nice. Yeah. Oh, what about you, Jamie? Did you have many rejections?
I actually had one. I think it was even before I found out what sound design was. I just like the audacity of it was crazy. I'm so embarrassed by it right now. But I applied to an EA position, and on my CV and like all the like, show me your work type, that kind of thing, I just like slapped some links of my album and like some like YouTube videos or whatever, and then my CV was just full of my musician experience, and like my cover letter was very just kind of vain in a way, like I'm a great musician and like please hire me and like you won't regret or whatever. Obviously nobody came back to me, thankfully. And I am still to this day thinking of breaking into EA's headquarters and like burn my files. It was so embarrassing. So that is a rejection.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for sharing that. The reason I asked you all about your rejections is because I think a lot of people trying to get into game audio and the industry probably are also having an absolute ton of rejections, and worse than rejections is just not hearing anything back. And to clarify, I was also exactly the same. I had so many rejections and like emails I'd sent out and just got nothing back. And I feel like, I don't know about you three, but I feel like a lot of people I know, they'll have loads of rejections, but then one job will come along and like, oh, this is the one. I can get this one. If the stars have aligned, this is what I'm going to get. And you get through to the interview stage. I'm like, yes, I've got it. It's in the bag. This is my time. You get through to the test. You get through to the final interview, and then you don't get it, and it's soul crushing. It's like that was it. Surely that was it. And like I've known a lot of people have gone and been through that phase, and it kills. It's really, 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 really bad. But like, again, like in my case, I had that, and then I got the job I am currently in now, still like maybe about like 3 months later. Some of my friends get like jobs like a week after they weren't expecting. I feel like all the applications you send, like maybe it's a bit of a random draw which one you end up getting. Like, don't feel bad about if you get rejections. If you're getting like interviews and stuff, I mean, that's amazing. You're clearly good enough to be of interest, so keep going. And even if you're not getting interviews, like there's just so many people trying to get into game audio, it makes it difficult. We've been touching on it all conference actually so far. We've mentioned it a few times already. Like, it's just so many people. Rejections are just part of a thing, unfortunately. It sucks, but this is right here showing you that even if you get rejected 50 plus times, you can still end up doing something you love, I hope, in your case, Lewis. And actually, I remember what I wanted to say earlier. Everyone's talking about like how important networking is and how important it is to kind of be everywhere and go to things and say yes to things and always put yourself out there. Obviously, these three did it loads, which is fantastic, and it says they work for them. But also, even if you're just like watching this live stream, like the fact that you're taking time out of your day, out of your Wednesday night, or if you're in the UK or wherever you are, like you're taking time out to kind of like push yourself and learn things and reach out. And if you're in the comments, like making comments, you're like putting your name up there, just things like that. Seems like not very much, but like there's so many more people not doing that who like would probably be interested, but like maybe just aren't doing it for whatever reason. So like congrats for everyone being here and attending the conference. And I'm not just trying to get you all into going to more talks, I promise. But I think like, again, just like stuff like that is merit towards it. Like, like Jack said, I saw him everywhere I looked, he was online, in person. And like, I'm just looking for the comments now. Like, I just see Aaron Richards posting a comment. I see him everywhere. I chat to him all the time. I see him at meetups, etc. And so I think being like a recognizable face like that and going to things and putting yourself out there as much as you can, I think is a really great idea. But anyway, sorry, I rambled too much. This is not about me. So I'm very sorry about that. My next question is, this is a question for all of you. And I want to ask, when you applied or when you got your current position or your big break anyway, were there any aspects of audio you were completely inexperienced in? And I'm asking this because a lot of people worry that there's so much they don't know. Like, personally for me, when I like started my job, I had no idea about programming implementation wise. I did a bit at uni, but I knew nothing about it basically. And I want to know if there's anything like that you just like, whether it's like surround sound or like music or like something specific like compression, if there's anything you just had no idea about and like you were upfront about, I don't know about this, but you still got the job anyway. And I guess let's ask you first, Jack. Do you have anything like you just, even now, if you don't know, like just something which is okay to not know everything about?
Yeah, quite a bit actually. So implementation, I barely knew anything about. I think I did like a 101, 201 course, and I barely understood that. And some like synthesis, I didn't really do much of it beforehand, like especially for sound design, like occasional synths, but like heavy synthesis, I still don't feel very comfortable like at all. And it's still something that I take time out of my day to practice. But yeah, mainly implementation for me, I think, is the biggest one.
Yeah, nice. And what about you, Lewis?
So many things. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so a big one, implementation. I think I did the same course as you, Jack, on the WISE 101, WISE 201. Oh my, it was so much to take in, and I was really trying to grasp the concept of it. So that was completely new to me. But yeah, I still really to this day don't know its full capabilities. Sound design, just in general sound design, even to this day, I don't think I know enough about sound design. I think that's super important. You've always got to be looking to get the next best sound and trying to figure things out. Even today, like I'm just walking around in my kitchen, I'm hearing a particular beep and I'm trying to figure out how can I recreate that using a synth. Just trying to keep your mind active with that kind of stuff. And a big one that I think isn't really spoken about too much is file organization. I see a lot of things with there's a lot of like crowdsourcing libraries and what have you that are out there where there are certain standards which make life so much easier for everyone in the sound design industry, and understanding those and being able to communicate what is within a file is so important, because it can make or break an entire kind of project if not done correctly. So I think that's something that is worth looking over if you're unsure.
Nice. How about you, Jamie? Is there anything that you wish
Yeah,
to be better at?
I literally didn't know anything, like zero, from the test kit era. So I had, but luckily my company put together a really detailed instructions and descriptions for stuff, and they knew that I am like I was really green at that, so they helped me a lot in that, and they were like, please ask us any questions you have. But yeah, to answer your question, I didn't know anything. I mentioned Paul teaching me how to render on Reaper. That was during the test. I didn't even know how to like render stuff properly. I was like getting so frustrated. What the hell is going on? So yeah, I really didn't know much. But I just focused on like how to make things like sound good to my ears, to my best ability. But yeah, like right now too, honestly, like I saw the chat and there a lot of people were like, yeah, implementation, like I'm so not confident in it and stuff. I'm really not confident in it either. The way my company is structured is kind of like divided into like asset creation and implementation. So still to this day, I've been working at my company for maybe 10 months by now, and I haven't done any implementation. So like all my knowledge that I have here is a little bit of like AFMOD, like YouTube videos, and like the same WISE 101, 201 course. But other than that, I'm still very, not experienced.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm actually intrigued that basically none of us here knew implementation when we started out. Like it took me like a couple of years before I started implementing stuff. I was learning on the job. I feel like I don't want to get across a message that no one should learn implementation, but clearly it's not required in this day and age, which surprises me. I do think that like just like some of the other things you'll mention, like kind of friendliness and like kind of networking ability and just like actual kind of sound design skills, I think is probably more important than for the roles that we're all in respectively. But there you go. If anyone of you in the chat is terrified about not having any implementation experience, I hope that hopefully eases your nerves a little. Yeah, let's all delete WISE. Good idea, Andrew. Okay, so a last question before I go on to the audience questions from me, if that's okay. So I was going to ask, just quite simply, what tips would you give someone starting out in your shoes, like say last year? Sorry, I forgot to ask. Jamie, do you want to go first?
I would say check out Greg's gameaudiolearning.com. That one wasn't quite online when I was looking, but it's just like invaluable resource that Greg like put his, what is it, blood, sweat, and tears into. And it's really,
do.
really awesome, and it's free. I think it's really important for us to like make game audio accessible, so that like you know, someone like me can like get into it without thinking like, oh, I need to like spend thousands of dollars on like these monitors, these headphones, these computers, before even like getting, you know, the job or whatever. So yeah, check out gameaudiolearning.com, and like there's a lot of free resources that a lot of people like volunteer their time to put together. What helped me a lot was the GDC like sound packs, the sound library, the free ones, and also Presley Hines put together an Excel like spreadsheet of like free plugins that you can use, and it's like really well organized by the genre, by the, you know, type, and like by the company and everything. And like that really, really helped me because I was so broke. I wasn't gonna spend hundreds of dollars on like Isotop or something, you know.
Nice, thank you. Lewis, do you want to go next? Any tips?
Hello. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, quite a few. So as Jamie said, checking out Game Audio Learning, because that is such a super duper resource. Yeah, I think it's as well as that, for me at least, when I was kind of getting through it, using YouTube as a resource is super, super useful. Game audio analysis, another one of Greg's projects, which is awesome. Looking at Real Talk, and just finding any way to expand on your skills was always super, super handy. And I think from a mental perspective, don't be too hard on yourself. I think it's very easy to be like, oh, I'm not getting there, I'm not doing this, and you beat yourself down, and you kind of get into this state of not enjoying what's going on. But I think the whole process of getting from nothing to eventually getting a job is super, super rewarding. So I think you should enjoy the process, learn, and have fun along the way, because that's why we're doing this job in the first place, aside from financial sides, of course. But we do it because we're a passion. We do it because we love it. And I think that's really, really important to don't lose sight of throughout all of this, because it's a passion. We do this because we love it. As well as the other notes earlier about networking, working hard, and all that stuff. But yeah, in short, don't be too hard on yourself. It will come to fruition. Just persevere with it and enjoy it.
Nice. Yeah, I totally agree. Great point. Jack, one tip.
Oh, the mute button sometimes just doesn't come off. Yeah, obviously echoing what the other two have said. And also, like, don't be afraid to shout for help. I think we've already said quite a few times, like, if you just message someone and ask for help, or you see someone's redesign online and you go, oh, that's awesome, how do they do that? Message them, ask. I promise you they're more than likely gonna give you a massive in-depth breakdown of how they've done it, because they're interested, that's their passion, they enjoy it. So yeah, no, don't be afraid to shout.
Yeah, I totally agree. I wanted to touch on that as well, actually. I think all three of you seem to have like some kind of mentoring relationship with someone in some aspect, if not more than one. And I think you all mentioned Greg's website, gameaudiolearning.com, which is amazing. You should all check it out. It has a mentoring tab on it where you can go and reach out to all these people who have volunteered to, like, you know, receive emails from people and help people out with their mentoring, do video calls, you know, review shows, etc. And so, yeah, I know what everyone's thinking, which is, I don't want to bother these people who are working with like my stupid email. I'm not worth it. But like honestly, I can't speak for everyone, but like on, you know, me and everyone I know in audio, are happy to speak to people. And if they don't respond, it's just because they don't have the time. They probably want to respond, they just can't like figure out the time out. So like if you're nice, and that is a key thing, if you're nice and reach out to anyone you're inspired by or anyone who made something you like, I really would recommend, like as Jack just said, you know, reach out to people, be friendly, ask for help, ask for advice, be specific with what you're after as well. Like, not just say, you know, look at this, so, you know, regards. You know, I think that's a really good idea. So thank you for that, everybody. There's a lot of questions coming in, so I'm just trying to grab them all and collate them into a list so I can read them all. Hi, Prezi, nice to see you in the chat, by the way. It's really awesome to see so many people here. This is a really wholesome talk so far. I'm absolutely loving it. Okay, so just quickly then, going into some of the questions we had when we did the post last week, I'm just going to fly through some of these ones. Someone asks, I think Jake Mulholland asked last week, what have you found to be the most challenging aspect of your job? So as a new junior sound designer, what's been the hardest thing to get used to? Lewis, do you want to go first?
Absolutely. I use Excel quite a bit for organizing. Oh, I hate it so much. It's like the worst thing. It's the most challenging software I've ever used. Forget Wise, Fmod, anything like that. Excel. But no, I think just going back to the organizing thing, I think that's a super challenging thing, which is the foundation. So for me, that's up there. And sound, just when you can't figure out sound, and you just don't know what else to add, and you're stuck in that limbo stage of just trial and error, that's super, super tricky. But I think asking for help, like Jack said previously, whether it's from peers or whoever it may be, can just take that weight off your shoulders. So I think that's fine.
How about you, Jamie? Anything particularly challenging you found since starting your new job?
Yeah, I think just in general terms, apparently there's a book of terms regarding sound design that people naturally pick up if they study sound design at a university level or something, or like even game development in general. So like picking up those terms, kind of like a little bit guessing all the time, not all the time, but like let's say half the time, and like half the time, I like sort of know what it means, and I have to like Google things. Those kind of things.
Nice, cool. Jack, how about you?
Like I can't even say it. Like, so speaking to people that aren't in audio. I can't say discipline for some reason.
Right, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, speaking to other people that aren't in audio, being able to communicate effectively. In my role, I work with animators constantly, and to be able to communicate effectively is something that's super difficult when you're so used to speaking to other audio members that just know these keywords that you're throwing out, and same to them. So kind of just being able to learn a bit of keywords from their discipline and maybe teaching other people theirs when you're setting up a communication line. It's really important.
I see. That's interesting, actually. I wouldn't have guessed that, actually, about the terminology and stuff. But it makes you want to, maybe Greg should add a guide of terminology to the website to help people learn that stuff. Okay, let's go for another one. Here's a quick one. Sam MJ a few days ago asked, who has been your biggest influence? Anyone want to go first? Do you want to hands up to volunteer?
Lewis Thompson.
Yeah, that's not allowed.
Just kidding. No, I can name it. The list goes on, I think, for me. There were just so many people who helped me along my journey. And, even my audio directors who are like my daily mentors, basically, I just message them all the time. And my producer, Rachel, too, whenever I have any kind of questions, like, what does this mean? Hey, this is the design I'm working on right now, and it somehow doesn't sound right, but I can't pinpoint it. And my audio directors are so great at like, oh, what about using like this kind of sounds and this kind of sounds? So like those kind of things help me really well. Yeah, just I have a huge list that I won't go through. No, I'm just going to go through right now. Just kidding. But yeah, a lot of people. But yeah, Lewis Thompson, number one.
Yeah, I'll slip you the $20 after this. Jack, Lewis, do you have any influences? Do you want to go first, Jack?
Yeah, sure. Might seem a bit of a cop-out, but my entire team, all the audio staff at Frontier are just incredibly talented, to the point where it makes you go, why should I be here? I'm not talented enough. Like some incredibly talented people. And yeah, just being able to have an open line of communication with them, it gives you kind of a look in their workflow. It's super inspiring. And also Lewis Thompson, of course, because I owe a lot to Lewis.
I can't afford all these bribes, everyone.
They're helping me extremely, man. And it's extremely inspiring watching you guys build this community and helping others, all while being a full-time sound designer as well.
Well, thank you. You're too kind. But that's no more of that, please. Lewis, any influences for you that you recommend to others?
Aside from the entire SoundCuts team, of course. One influence that I can kind of remember from when I was originally starting out was a sound designer from the YouTube era of like Tom Scar, if you ever remember any of those stuff.
Yeah, totally.
And the chap's name, I believe, is Dan Pogsley. I didn't realize at the time, but that made like a huge influence on a lot of the stuff that I did. And funnily enough, I went to a meetup fairly recently, and I bumped into him, and I've only ever known him from his work, and I didn't recognize his face, and I regret that at the moment. So until next time, and I'll be giving him all his praise. But yes.
Were you like, it's a me, Luigi, 69?
It was like, oh my god, it's you.
Well, thanks for that, everyone. So I'm going to move on to the audience questions. So, I promised, but there's one more question I wanted to get through from we had a few days ago. And this is, you don't have to name and shame anyone for this, but did you receive any bad advice in hindsight? Advice you had which maybe you did listen to and it didn't work, or advice you knew straight away, I'm not going to do that. Like anything, and if you don't have anything, fair enough, But anyone have anything for bad advice? Do you want to raise your hand if you think you've got something? Or just all good advice? Okay, Jack, let's hear it.
Kind of touching onto implementation a little bit. When I went to develop, I was told by someone that implementation was 100% what I should learn. I should scrap all redesigns. Don't bother with it. Don't improve on it. Just be 100% implementation, because sound design is it's too competitive. There's too many people going for sound design positions. Thank God I didn't listen to that, because otherwise I wouldn't be in the position I am now. And I do understand where they're coming from. Implementation is an amazing skill to have, especially if you're strong at sound design as well. If you can build that up on the side, you're like a golden gem. Like, that doesn't exist, having super strong sound design skills and implementation. But yeah.
Absolutely right. Have you been speaking to Greg Lester by the sounds of it?
No.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I actually had a really similar thing when I started out. I had people kind of tell me just ditch that and start learning to program, because it'll be more useful. We said it at the start how everyone's journey is different getting into sound. And I think, it's just kind of, this is the result about if people, ditch down and learn technical stuff and then they get a job with technical stuff, and that obviously works for them, and that's fantastic. Someone did mention actually one of the questions in the audience, I forget who it was by, sorry, but I copied it down, which was what suggestions would you have for those of us who are stronger on the technical side versus the designing? I find it's difficult to incorporate my coding and creative implementation into a demo reel. So why do you think, if you're in this position where you prefer the technical side to the junior sound design, like, you're probably in a good position, because I think there's probably more technical roles going, or at least less competition with technical roles going than the regular sound design. I suppose, do any of you have any kind of insight about how you can do a kind of technical sound design reel? Has anyone done a technical sound design reel here? Because you're all regular sound designers.
I know.
Sorry.
I know. School of Video Game Audio, they do have a fantastic course that everyone who comes out of that program just brings in like this really fancy Wise Unreal implementation stuff. So maybe if you're looking into building like technical reels, then it could be an option. And they do like tuition rebate, I think, at the end of the day. If you are like selected one of the good like portfolios, then they will give some of the money back. So it's not too expensive.
Cool, I see. Another question that comes in then. Someone asked, is moving to Europe a good idea to get a job as a sound designer? And I can rephrase this to moving where some of us maybe like traditionally more games companies, so whether it's Europe, America, etc., depending on where you are, or just like moving cities. Did any of you find you had to move for any positions? Yeah. To be fair, actually, I know you all did so much networking. Did anyone would you think you wouldn't have been able to do it or get your positions, etc., if you weren't in a space where there were so many networking events happening? Yeah, everyone's on mute, but that was 3 nods. I guess, does anyone want to answer that question? Anyone think that you do? Yeah, go on this.
Yeah, I think being in a place where there are meetups and putting an impression to someone face to face and being physically there to show off your mannerisms, kind of how you talk, is a completely different ballpark compared to typing. And I think it's a lot easier to build up trust with people if you are friendly in person. That's the way I kind of see it. You can be very friendly online. You can always be there, active online. But I think to get a real human connection, being there in person does help quite a bit. And that's kind of how my networking has helped me get where I am through that.
Yeah, well, that's probably not the answer I wanted to hear, I suppose, if it involves moving to another country. Go on, Jack, after you.
There we go. I was just going to say, yeah, I'm super fortunate in where I am. Like literally pretty much the game design hub. Like everything's around me. But I feel like, and I've seen a lot of it happen. If you're in an area where there's not many meetups or anything like that, try start one. I know so many different people that have started a game audio meetup or just a game meetup. And they're juniors, they don't have role, or like they're juniors or don't have roles. And they've built massive communities around it. So yeah, no, maybe just on Airwiggles or Twitter or whatever, just kind of post, hey, I'm in this area. Would anyone be up for meetup? Even if it's just two of you, then you've built a bit of a connection there. I'd definitely go for it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Jack. Yeah, like we know a lot of people who have started their own meetups. You know, I'm one of them. There's other people on the website who have started their own meetups as well. We can easily put it on Airwiggles on the events tab so people can see it and RSVP to it. Just let us know. We're happy to collaborate with you on that. Yeah, totally agree. Absolutely agree. Okay, right. I'm going to move on to another question. Right. I took so long getting to this, 1 hour, 7 minutes. So I'm sorry. Someone asked, I think it was Helly Linus asked, do you need a website? What do you think, everyone? Do you all have websites? Yeah. Okay, Jamie, do you think it helped with your job getting, or do you think it was like a little extra?
I think it just helps in general, like not particularly, it didn't really particularly help with my job because I didn't have anything, like I said, when I got this job. But it's still, it's more like making yourself more accessible for people to like get to know you, right? Rather than just like sending a bunch of links of your YouTube channel or like redesigns and like check this out, check that out. You know, and like if you have a website, you can actually you have the agency to collect what you want to show, and then you have something to present to people. So don't think about it though as like a self-promotion tool, or like I need to make my website as flashy as possible to like stand out. But like, you know, just like start as, okay, I'm just having a platform for myself to showcase my work that's selected by me, rather than have them like kind of floating around.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great answer. I totally agree. Cool. Right, this next question, I think, yeah, I know what all your answers are going to be. I think I'm going to get a sea of nodding. How did you feel when you got your first kind of main job? Did you get imposter syndrome at all? Yes. yes, we all did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're struggling with it a lot, they say. But yeah, how did you feel when you got your first kind of, you know, your first kind of like, yeah, this is a sound design job? Lewis, do you want to go first?
Sure. I was on Google for like 90% of my time, Googling how to do things and what to do, because yeah, you just don't feel, I think because you're in a sea of people that you perceive to be the top of their game, they know everything, they do this for a living, you need to be that. So I think, at least for me, in the first few weeks, I was constantly trying to achieve that. And the more and more you get into it, the more and more you understand that everyone's in the same position. They're all just Googling things, and maybe not all of them, but a lot of people are also just Googling. No one knows everything. I guess it comes back to that being humble enough to say, okay, I don't know this, but I'm going to find out. But as far as imposter syndrome goes, yeah, all the time. I'm having it right now. Like, I shouldn't be here having this talk, but
you should, Lewis. You absolutely should. Do not worry about that at all. How about you, Jamie? Did you struggle with imposter syndrome when you got your first job?
Every single day until until today even. It's just I think it's more important to know how to deal with it, because it's gonna be there for you. Unless you're like Elon Musk or something. So yeah, just, you know, having it is fine, and like don't try to get rid of it, but just really know where it's coming from, because there's always a root for imposter syndrome, and all you can do is maybe work on it a little bit day by day to, you know, kind of like lower the intensity of it. But yeah, just like be kind to yourself. Don't feel bad for having imposter syndrome, because I have it every single day, and some days it feels really bad, but what can you do? It's going to be there. So
yeah, absolutely. Jack, do you have the same kind of outlook, I imagine, about imposter syndrome?
Exact same every single day. I feel like it in one way or another. But I also think you can use it as a tool to kind of grow. Like, why are you feeling that imposter syndrome? There's probably some reason. I know quite a lot of us kind of in our minds, we get in our heads, and we're like, oh, we're so much worse than we are. But kind of think about why you're feeling like it. It's definitely helped me kind of point out stuff that I feel in myself that I'm not as confident on, and take some time out of my day to kind of improve on that.
Nice. Those are really good answers. And I just want to say to all of you, you should not suffer from it. You are all amazing. And I'm not just saying that because we're on a live panel and it would be really rude if I didn't. I genuinely believe that you're all fantastic sound designers. But, you know, we all get imposter syndrome, don't we? Everyone's in the chat is saying, yes, I also have it, even after working for however many years. Next question. Oh, sorry, Lewis, did you want to say something?
Sorry, I just wanted to jump in. I think I saw someone in chat say there was like a fake it till you make it thing.
Yeah,
and
I was just going to ask that, actually.
I think it's just a really, really good way to approach having imposter syndrome, is kind of fake it, pretend you're there, and over time you will be. I just thought I'd throw that in there as a quick point to dealing with.
Yeah. Someone asked a good question, which I'm not sure we can answer. Someone asked, how do you balance the kind of fake it till you make it personality with just being too honest about what you can't do in like job interviews of the early days? Have any of you struggle with that, or have any tips on where to draw the line? How about you, Jack?
Yeah, I had this a lot. My trick was if it's something that I'm feeling uncomfortable about, and it's not directly like I'm not lying, then I just don't bring it up. So if it's something that like you don't want to say, like for me, for example, I didn't want to say that I didn't go to university. It was quite embarrassing for me. And if someone didn't ask, just didn't bring it up. But if they ask, of course, I'm going to tell them the truth. But and that really helped me kind of have confidence around it, because some things like that, it can be really daunting.
Yeah. How about you, Jamie? What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Jack said. You can be honest, but still be selective of the information that you want to share. And that's not shady or calculative at all. It's just setting up your boundaries and knowing which information you're comfortable sharing. For me, it's just like I'm kind of like a blabbermouth. I like talk a lot and I say a lot of things. So it was comfortable for me. I knew going into it, going back to the Twitter stuff, I knew that I would be comfortable sharing that I am a noob and I don't know a lot of things. But then that doesn't mean, and like I did it publicly, right? I did it kind of like into the void of like, I don't even know who's gonna read this. But I don't recommend it for everyone for sure. Like I think I'm kind of the like a rare case of like oversharing. But yeah, just like set your boundaries, be sure about what kind of information you want to share. You can still be honest.
Fantastic. Yeah, really great. Can I ask all of you, I know you and Lewis, sorry, you, Jamie and Lewis, have a musical background before getting into sound design. Jack, were you into music before getting into sound design?
Yeah,
so all of us.
Yeah, all of music production.
Actually. Okay. Someone asked, what's your advice for people coming from a non-musical background trying to break in as a sound designer, considering the fact that most indie game devs want a sound person that can do everything? Do any of you have any insights on this one? I know it's kind of tricky for all from a musical background. Any hands?
I know quite a few sound designers that don't do music at all and have never done it. They maybe touched on it a little bit, but they didn't enjoy it. Yeah, I know quite a few, and they got into it very similarly. I think a lot of people come from music because it's quite a direct route. It makes sense. I think as well, and this isn't for everyone, but I've heard a lot of people jump from music just because it's not as secure. It can be quite a wobbly career sometimes, especially being like freelance in music. And I think a lot of people jump for that, but you can definitely get into it in other ways. Everyone's building up these skills, so you just build it up in a slightly different way.
Yeah, totally. Fantastic. Just quickly before I go on to my next point, I've run out of questions on my little list. I know I've missed some, so if I've not answered your question, then post it again because I'll see it again. But yes, I just wanted to say, if you're trying to get into sound design and you don't have a musical background, like basically 90% of us do, because we all started, making beats in FL Studio in our bedrooms when we were younger. I'd like to say it's probably, if anything, an advantage to not have that, because almost so many people starting out are trying to do music, but then applying for sound design jobs anyway because they want to do music, but they're just applying for whatever they can. They don't really care that much. They're just looking for kind of something close enough to music. And so having like a specialty as sound design probably gives you a little bit of an advantage over everyone else if you think of it that way. I would say it might be worth learning a little bit of music theory to use in your sound design. I went into that more on the talk I did yesterday about getting into game audio. Feel free to watch that. It's on Airwiggles for free, so you can watch that and see what I said. Okay, right. Some more questions have come in. Sorry. Okay, here's a question from Maximus. If you have an online presence, which I think you all do, did it relate directly to sound, or did it start as something else that you eventually changed to audio? Jack, do you want to go first again?
Yeah, my horrendous music was up first. And I actually went to develop with that as kind of the forefront, and sound design as the little bit of the background. I quickly shut that all down. But yeah, no, I definitely started like that. I think it's perfectly fine too.
Yeah, nice. How about you, Jamie?
I started Twitter specifically for game audio stuff because I realized that that's where the community is focused on. So I made my Twitter account just to be sound design related stuff. But now it's just like, well, like before too. It's kind of like I just share a lot of stuff. And like, wow, today's beautiful, to like, I just recently watched a really trashy reality show and it wrecked my mental health. So I share that kind of stuff too. Yeah. That being funny. Cool. Yeah.
I think it's a good strategy, to be fair. Being human and being, you know, funny and making observations on your kind of main business account, I think does help. And like, it helped for you. It's kind of up to you how far you want to take that, I suppose. Just kind of like, I also have a separate kind of like Twitter business account. I don't have a regular Twitter account. But like, it's all business and sound for me personally. What about you, Lewis? How about your social media accounts?
Yeah, exactly the same thing. Before I got into sound, within the game audio community, I didn't really have a Twitter. I have from ages ago, and I only recently got it for that. And it's great to have one place where everything is just popping off. This was before I signed up to airwiggles.com first, of course. But yeah, exactly the same thing. And now I just make silly memes about RX, and sometimes they do well, and sometimes they don't.
I love your RX memes, to be honest. I wish you posted on my Airwiggles, to be honest, Lewis. Not to call you out in front of 100 people.
I feel seen. Oh my god.
Anyway, sorry, I've got a question just for you, Jamie. This one. Do you ever create music for games given your background as a musician? Is there any level of overlap between sound design and music roles in the projects that you work on?
I did for all the game jams that I participated, and it wasn't intentional. I didn't want to make music, but oftentimes I was the only person, only audio person in the team, so I kind of had to do it. The reason why I'm saying that I didn't want to do it is because I am practicing this like strong boundaries between my music career and sound design career, even though the skills and like how I think, they definitely overlap with each other. And I use some of my like theories or like harmonic kind of ears to use when I design sounds. But like for my current job, I don't do music, and I don't really plan to do any music.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, next question here is from Adam Brown, who says, where would you suggest posting your progress in videos? LinkedIn, Twitch? How do you make sure they get visibility and people watching them? I mean, there's an obvious answer starting with A, but aside from that, tell you what, Jack, how about you? Where do you where did you post your kind of like progress videos?
So it all started on Twitter. I didn't really get much traction from it. There's so much on Twitter. And I didn't really, it was right at the start. And then this isn't an advertisement for Airwiggles. Unironically, I did start posting on Airwiggles, and especially because I joined very, very early. It was probably one of the only things people were seeing, so they had to watch my stuff. And then from there, I kind of, I got comments and stuff like that, and it's really handy for getting feedback. That was the main thing. I think most people use posting their progress and redesigns is for feedback, and Airwiggles is super, super handy for that.
Yeah. How about you, Lewis? Where did you post your redesigns when you're working on them?
Here's the interesting thing. I kind of approached people directly, people that I could trust, for feedback, rather than putting it into the sea of Twitter and what have you. Because I found, at least from my perspective, it was because there was so much content on there. My attention span is super, super short. I'd swipe through so many different things. I mean, look at like TikTok, and that was just super quick. So I'd approach people directly that I knew had an idea, rather than someone I've never known before who could be just criticizing my work, saying, "Oh, that's not very good," and that wouldn't be helpful. So I wanted to speak to people who would be super helpful, like the Airwiggles community, who are awesome for this kind of stuff.
How about you, Jamie? Where did you post your kind of progress videos and your sound designs as you were working on them?
I posted on Twitter, but like same as Lewis, I sent it to a bunch of people like individually and for feedback and just like to show progress and stuff. I think where like in terms of which platform you post things are not relevant that much, to be honest, like unless it's Airwiggles, because we have very like specific purpose and specific like group of people gathered together for a specific purpose. Again, I think it's more important to have more intention when you put it out there. So like even on Twitter, don't just post it on your like main account. Maybe like on Screenshot Wednesday or like Portfolio Saturday or whatever, those kind of hashtags, use them and like post your reel under the comment like among many people, because that again has very specific purpose, and that will increase the visibility of your reel and whatever work that you want to share. So yeah, just don't just like expect it to be like seen by people. Okay, I'm just gonna put it up on my YouTube channel, like no one's gonna see it. I'm just gonna put it up on my Twitter feed, like maybe some people will see it but not really. So like use the hashtags, be intentional about like what and like how you're posting it.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And I'd actually just like to jump on this as well. You mentioned how do you make sure they get visibility and people see them. I think you may be approaching it wrong. You don't want 100 people to see it. You want like maybe 1, 2, or 3 people to see it and give you really good feedback. And so I think ways you can do that, like everyone else said, like reaching out to people individually, great idea, really good idea. As long as you're polite, I think that's welcome. And worst that's going to happen is you're not going to get a response. But also, I think if you are going to make a post on Twitter or Airwiggles or something, ask a question which it makes it easier for people to answer. Like ask like, oh, is this saw titting sound working? Is it punchy enough? Or you could do like, which do you prefer out of A or B? I have noticed, like just from myself, when seeing people post stuff on the sound creations tab on Airwiggles, the ones that ask questions about like which is better, what do you think of this really specific thing, gets more feedback and more people, because it's easy to be like, oh, let's have a listen. Oh, it's that one. Yeah, it's good or bad, or it's A or B, etc. So that's my tip for you anyway. But yeah, great answers all around, everyone. Here's a question for everyone. Let's see. I'm sorry, my chat's disappeared. How important is it to filter genres and styles when it comes to studios when networking? It seems quite overwhelming with plethora of studios that are available. I guess basically, yeah, when you're kind of like, doing your show reels, when you're doing your website, were you kind of narrowing down, or were you being a jack of all trades? What was everyone doing? Jack, after you.
So I think it's really important to specialize. It's a piece of advice I was given by pretty much everyone, is make sure you have a tailored show reel. A lot of people have multiple. That being said, I didn't. I think because of my interview process was mainly done through a test, it wasn't done show reel. I didn't ever get a chance to get to that point. But if I carried on and I hadn't got that position, I definitely would have tailored it. So let's say, for example, you're applying for a studio that's known for doing horror games. Make sure you got that horror reel. And try and get something for each genre, and then have a general one. You can have your general on your web page, but just have like a really good bank of reels to kind of not reels, redesigns to kind of put together for that specific studio.
Nice, fantastic. How about you, Jamie? Did you specialize your kind of stuff you were working on?
Yeah, definitely. Like that same as Jack. Like a lot of people gave me the advice, like the same advice, and my reel actually currently is very geared towards to AAA studios. It was only because I was looking to apply for AAA studios, and that was my tailored reel. But now I'm thinking of making a reel every year, just like for like record keeping purposes. So I think moving on from now on, like I think I'll be focusing on the games that I actually enjoy working on. I am I played a lot of AAA games. I am a huge fan of them, but I'm also into a lot of indie games, and like that's what I'm more passionate working on. So I think my reel's gonna be more tailored to that.
Yeah, fantastic. How about you, Lewis? Did you narrow yourself down, or were you broad?
So interestingly, my dissertation was based on this, but within specifically the music industry. And I interviewed, I think it was about 20 people, and it was almost a 50-50 split with people who were jack of all trades and people who were super specific. The bottom line was that they were all successful because of the way that they approached their work and coming back to how hard they worked and their work ethic. So I think if you wanted to specialize, great, just work really, really good and be a really, really one good thing. For instance, Jamie being a jazz drummer, I'm sure she's fantastic and she's specialized in that particular thing, so she'll be above the competition. But if you're going to be a jack of all trades, make sure you've got a really good spread across all of them. However, for show reels, I think Jamie and Jack have hit the nail on the head there. If you're going to go for something specific, tailor it. That really will stand out amongst the crowd. For me, I'd put my best work on there and hope for the best, but that was a mistake that I kind of ran into because I wasn't going for something that was very specific. So learn from my mistakes at least and take their advice for sure. Being specific is really, really good.
Nice. Yeah, fantastic. I think, again, just to jump on this as well, I think just to clarify, there's maybe a little bit of difference here. I think whether like you yourself in general want to be a specialist or want to be a generalist, I think that's more up for debate. Personally, I'm team generalist. Some people I know are, some people aren't, that's up to you. But I do agree that when you're actually applying for a specific job that's come up for a specific studio, it is best to tailor your show reel to that studio. Like Jack said, like if you're applying for a horror studio, you don't need a bunch of racing games starting your show reel. You want to make sure it's like relevant stuff. But just in general about being specialist or not, like it's kind of up to you. And there's a great talk on this coming up on Friday. What a segue, by John Kelly here, doing a talk about how being a generalist makes you a better specialist. So if you're interested in that, then by all means, check that talk out. It's going to be fantastic. Someone asks, how do you approach game jams as an audio person if you don't have any experience with coding? Who's done a game jam here? Jamie, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the length of the game jam. I've done a couple weekend ones and one like 1 week long. I never had to do any coding, to be honest. And I don't think you should worry about that much. One advice I would give is get involved in the process as early as possible. Don't just go into it like, I'm only going to do audio. You're going into it to pitch your ideas and like eventually to make your work easier, right? Like don't just, you don't want to crunch like so many different asset lists that other people made for you in like 10 hours, and like your game might not even be able to showcase at that point. So like be involved as early as possible. And pitch your game ideas and make your own asset list and like kind of like steer the direction together with the team, rather than worrying about coding. Like I've never had to do any coding.
Cool, fantastic. Tell you what, we've just hit 1.5 hours, so I'm going to do one last question for everyone, if that's okay. I appreciate it's been a bit longer than our other talks, so thank you all for staying with me this long. The last question, is any advice for those who work full-time day jobs and struggle to fit in networking and sound design on the side? By the sounds of it, a lot of you are really busy, burning both ends of the candle, trying to get into this. Lewis, how about you first? Because I know you were working, in retail when you were getting into all this stuff.
Try and find the time. I have really rubbish piece of advice, unfortunately. But I think when I was trying to kind of work around this, I would have my pattern of what I would have, and I would kind of break down my day and think, okay, what can I reasonably do here? Can I cut this time here? Do I really need to do this here? And just reassess what is your daily life like, and try and trim down times. Because if you can take 5 minutes off one thing, 5 minutes off something else, even if it's something, I don't know, as an example, batch cooking food, if you can pre-make 5 portions of food, that's going to save you an extra half an hour every day. And that extra half an hour can be put towards meeting people, just starting chats, just keeping something going. So from my point of view, really analyze your day, see where you can realistically cut time, and squeeze in those networking events if possible.
Yeah, good tip. How about you, Jack? Any advice?
There we go. I think it's kind of going back to the point of you don't have to see networking events as working and trying to find these opportunities to get work. See it as a social gathering, and I think that can sometimes change people's perspective on how to break down their day, is if they see it as an end of the day social thing. If you can kind of categorize it as social and not work, then it's a lot easier to even just mentally sometimes it's a lot easier to go, okay, I'll do that after work because it's a social thing. And especially if it's your first one, it can be hard to see that from the outside looking in. Trust me, it is. It's literally just people talking. Sometimes you don't even talk about game audio. But yeah, kind of look at it as a social thing for your end of your day, and try and get it in when you can. But also, people understand if you can't go. Some people are really busy. I was very fortunate in my position that I was working pretty much part-time, so I had a lot more time than others. But yeah.
Yes, that's good. That's good advice. It's quite funny. Yeah, this probably sounds terrifying. Oh, just treat a networking event to do the job you want to do, and you must do all the time. That's just a fun social thing. It's fine. But honestly, it really is the case. Like of the networking events that I've been to, and I've been to hundreds, and likewise I've seen Jack at much of them as well. They're always really friendly, and it's always nerve-wracking. Like when you're standing outside a pub, about to open the door, like, oh god, I'm gonna have to go and speak to all these new people. It's gonna be terrifying. But as soon as you're gonna sit down and start talking to like one or two people, you kind of quickly realize actually this is just people chatting and getting to know each other, and it is just like making friends and chatting with old friends. And as soon as you go to like your second or third networking event, it's so much easier. So yeah, it's a really great bit of advice, Jack. Jamie, I know you said you kind of took some time off work to kind of do your show or stuff, but how do you have any thoughts about this question?
So I did that because I did what Louis just said. I reassessed my situation and really tried to figure out like how much time I have, and what kind of things that I need to improve on. So that is just like invaluable skill. I think in general in life, you have to be able to like aware of like what's going on in your life, both in terms of professionally, but also personally. How much mental capacity do you have? Because as a self-taught sound designer, there was just a ton of stuff for me to learn while juggling a full-time musician life, which has like the weirdest hours possible. And so eventually I had to really work hard to save up, to buy myself some time to really focus on game audio. But I also acknowledge that that's something not very possible for many people. So my advice would be, just echoing Louis, really like assess your situation and like really zero in, like narrow down the list, a huge chunk of list, into just one or two little things that you can actually afford to work on. And it is easy for us to think that, oh, like I just only did one thing, only did like a couple things, like it's really small, it's like really nothing, but it is something actually. You have to be able to acknowledge that, and you have to believe that it's going to become a huge skill set that you're going to build, and it's not gonna like nothing should be done overnight, right? Like we're here for the long run, not a sprint. So really assess that. And also for the networking front, going to meetups and going to huge meetup networking like events are not the only way to network. Really take advantage of, so many people in the chat have already said, reach out to people one-on-one, and they would be happy to like talk to you, help you if you need any help. And those are like really valuable networking. And like personally for me, I think those type of individual networking was actually more helpful for me, or like valuable for me, than going to like huge meetups.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jamie. That was a great answer, and I totally agree as well. I'd also say, like, once you start really obsessing about game audio, you just start improving even when you're not doing anything. Like once you become obsessed with game audio, whenever you watch a film or play a game, you start being like, oh, I've got a randomized footstep system. That's interesting. All this kind of stuff. Like, as long as if you're in the kind of like right mindset of like, I am committing to game audio now, like you'll start improving even when you're not actually doing any work that day. If you're so busy, like you'll be surprised that when you learning things or recording things when you're not really like officially doing any work or anything. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there, everybody, because it's been a long time. I'm sure all our voices and glasses of water are empty. I love talking to all of you. Thank you so much for being here. I had a really amazing time, like getting to know your stories. I already, I kind of know most of you already, but I learned so much from all of you, and I really hope everyone in the chat learned some stuff as well. I'm aware there's a lot of questions coming in today, and I do my best to keep up with as many as I can. I know there's probably more coming. But in case you missed some questions, or if you want to kind of keep talking to these amazing people, I have to shout out Jamie is going to be on the A Shell in a Pit panel next week. So there'll be some more questions you can ask there, and tune in to more of Jamie's paneling. Louis Ball has got a talk coming up next week, and is going to be hosting a few talks as well. So, Louis will be around more on AirCon. And Jack, again, well, you're not on any more talks, so to speak, unfortunately, but you're on Airwiggles. You know, all of you have accounts. Anyone's going to be happy to, you know, sorry to volunteer for this, but like, I'm assuming if anyone messages anyone, I'm assuming we'll be happy to try and get back to them in their own time to kind of play it forward, all the help that they received. So yeah, just a really massive thanks from everyone. I'll let you all say goodbye, and one last thank you before I end the stream.
Oh,
yeah, no, thank
thanks
you so
much.
guys. Yeah, cheers, guys.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Feel free to reach out with any questions or anything like that. Happy to respond.
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
Thanks,
drop us a
everyone.
wiggle. Love, I do.
I'm going to end the stream now. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye bye.
See ya. Bye.
Bye,
Thanks for
everyone.
joining, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lewis. Bye bye.